A gunshot rings out over the estate under a full moon. Ruana stands in terror as Eden bleeds heavily from his back. She realizes that she has truly committed an irreversible violent act. A soft gasp, escapes the brown-haired maid's lips in fear. The silver-haired man leans forward, his white shirt soaked in blood. A heavy, rhythmic thrumming sounds as the mastermind collapses into her. Eden weakly attempts to speak while leaning his weight against Ruana. Ruana reflects on the fact that she has killed the story's masterminds. She remembers her previous life ending when a truck hit her. The soul of a college student gazes out from a new body. She identifies herself as a lowly mansion maid named Ruana Polly. Ruana knows that Eden Croydon is fated to destroy the world. Eden is a typical villain who believes everyone else must die. In a world of magic, Eden was considered a complete failure. His body was so frail that strong magic would break him. A harsh environment birthed a mastermind who wishes for the end. The household only hired fellow magic failures to serve as staff. Despite being a failure, Ruana discovered she could naturally use magic. Ruana laments her terrible luck while fearing a violent future death. She resolves to leave the mansion before it becomes a battlefield. Her plan involves looting the mastermind's vault and fleeing for Bade. She decides that the novel's original storyline is no longer her concern. To succeed, she needs to enter the mastermind's private bedroom vault. Morning light shines over the domes of the grand Croydon mansion. Another maid questions why Ruana is completely covered in dark set. Ruana defends her cleaning as a means to escape the estate simmer. The maid suggests that such hard work usually goes unnoticed anyway. The head maid adjusts her glasses while silently observing the conversation. The head maid reprimands Ruana for her disgraceful soot-covered appearance. Ruana apologizes, privately wondering if she overdid her messy cleaning disguise. The head maid orders Ruana to clean the master's bedroom immediately. Ruana excitedly agrees, realizing her chance to loot has finally arrived. She imagines herself successfully robbing the mastermind's vault and running away. Ruana dreams of spending her days in a peaceful, tropical retirement. Upon entering the room, Ruana is baffled by the vault's gate. She kneels in shock before a storage safe that is completely empty. Ruana complains about finding a useless scrap of paper instead of treasure. A sudden, heavy thump sounds as she realizes she is not alone. Eden stands behind her and demands to know who she is. Terrified, Ruana screams Eden's name as he gazes down at her. She cowers in fear, wondering how he arrived without making a sound. A sharp mechanical click sounds as she draws a revolver on him. Ruana trembles while pointing the weapon directly at the silver-haired mastermind. Eden smiles and asks if she is using a magic bullet. Another click echoes as she warns him to stop his approach. Eden dares her to shoot while she hysterically repeats her threat. Eden leans into her space and commands her to shoot him. She cries out her intent to fire as he takes another step. Ruana closes her eyes tight as a loud bang suddenly erupts. She peeks out, horrified to see Eden bleeding from a fresh wound. Eden's eyes widen in shock as blood drips from his mouth. The silver-haired man stares blankly, blood staining his pale lips. Eden collapses forward, his white shirt heavily soaked in fresh blood. Ruana catches the wounded man as he weakly calls out. She panics after realizing the silver-haired mastermind is no longer breathing. Eden slumps onto the cold floor in a massive blood pool. Ruana sits in despair, questioning the irreversible act she just committed. She stares at the revolver, wondering if she truly killed someone. A sharp gasp sounds as Ruana tells herself to regain composure. She looks back at the body, paralyzed by her uncertain future. Ruana decides she must flee the room before any witnesses arrive. A mysterious purple energy begins to swirl around the dead mastermind. Magic lifts Eden's body as a strange, glowing aura manifests. The silver-haired man remains motionless while the magical pressure intensifies. Light erupts around the mastermind, signifying a reality-bending transformation. Eden suddenly stands up, his back still heavily soaked in blood. He exhales a long breath as blood trickles down his face. Ruana freezes in terror, unable to believe the mastermind is standing. Eden looks at his bloody hands, his purple eyes glowing slightly. Ruana is horrified, realizing her fatal shot failed to stop him. Sinister text confirms the impossible. The mastermind has returned to life. Ruana rejects the reality of a dead man suddenly resurrected. Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick knock on the door. A bearded butler calls out, asking if his lord is safe. Ruana stares in silent dread as the butler questions the gunshot. Eden smiles chillingly while reflecting on his own survival. The maid realizes she will be caught if anyone enters go. Ruana despairs, feeling her life is over if the truth is revealed. A rhythmic clack sounds as Eden's shoes step through the blag. Eden pulls Ruana close to hide his injuries from the servants. Eden tells the people outside that nothing happened and orders them away. Ruana is speechless as the resurrected man holds her firmly. Eden demands to know how she gained the ability to use magic.
He presses Ruana for her reason for sneaking into his bedroom. Eden pauses suspiciously while looking at the trembling maid. Eden gazes down at Ruana, asking if she works for Arthur.
Ruana is stunned by the sudden mention of the story's protagonist. The scene shifts to Arthur Cameron, the faceless blonde hero.
Arthur is identified as the protagonist who leads the original story. He is destined to become the savior who protects the world. Ruana wonders why the hero's name is involved in this mess. She ponders the connection between the mastermind and the hero.
Ruana tells Eden that she has no idea who Arthur is.
Eden mocks her, questioning why she broke into his private room. Eden tells her to stop before she denies serving the hero. Ruana insists she was only trying to steal and sell valuables.
Eden looks down at her with suspicion, unconvinced by her excuse.
Ruana desperately tries to change the subject to his sudden recovery. She prepares herself to ask the question burning in her mind. Ruana asks Eden if he died and then returned to life. Ruana stares in silent confusion as the silver-haired mastermind looms close. Eden questions why she is confused while Ruana responds with bewilderment.
The silver-haired man grips Ruana's shoulders, his white shirt stained with blood.
Eden accuses Ruana of killing and reviving him to create a puppet. The brown-haired maid wonders if the resurrection has scrambled his mental state.
Ruana realizes that the mastermind has completely misinterpreted her original desperate intentions. Ruana hesitates before attempting to address the violent events that occurred earlier.
The maid offers a frantic, awkward apology for accidentally shooting the master. Eden remains stoic as Ruana decides that apologizing is her only option. Ruana insists she is no killer and claims the shot was an accident. Ruana bows deeply while repeating her sincere apologies to the blood-soaked man. Eden explains that strange, hovering letters have appeared before his eyes since waking. The silver-haired man describes the mysterious, glowing text that only he can see. Ruana is struck by a sudden, terrifying realization regarding his strange new vision. A heavy silence falls between the two as the atmosphere becomes incredibly tense. A floating system notification congratulates Eden on being the world's first unique casualty.
Ruana realizes the system identifies her as the person from another world.
Eden points out that the mysterious glowing text has even more to say. The maid is horrified to read that Eden's reward for dying is revival.
Ruana and Eden stand like small figures within the pages of a massive book.
Ruana ponders how the novel's logic allows for such a reality-bending reward. The maid's gaze is drawn to the lethal revolver lying on the floor. A flashback reveals the shock in Eden's eyes as the bullet hit him.
Ruana remembers the heavy weight of the dying mastermind collapsing into her arms.
The brown-haired woman clenches her jaw, overwhelmed by the dark turn of events. Ruana rejects the idea of the revival cycle, calling it far too inhuman. A servant calls out to the master from behind the closed bedroom door. Eden remains silent as he gazes at the weapon with a chilling expression. The silver-haired man commands the terrified maid to shoot him once again. Ruana is paralyzed by fear, unable to comprehend his demand for another execution. Eden forces the loaded revolver into the trembling maid's hand with a snap. The mastermind commands her to kill him again to confirm the revival reward. Ruana refuses to fire, insisting the first shot was just a terrible accident. Eden pins the maid down and demands the test be conducted right now. The silver-haired man presses the gun to his neck and readies the hammer. Eden commands the maid to hurry up and end his life once more. A chilling smile plays on Eden's lips as he whispers about his revival. Eden's eyes glow red while he justifies taking his lethal new system reward. Ruana stands alone in a hallway, leaning on a broom with a sigh. Chibi images reflect Ruana's disbelief that the villain gained a revival ability. Chibi Eden gives a thumbs up while Ruana laments her own terrible situation. Ruana reflects on the blonde hero, Arthur, who leads the novel's original story. The maid sweeps the grand hallway while questioning the world's chaotic new logic. A voice suddenly calls out Ruana's name, snapping her out of her thoughts. Another maid asks if the cleaning is finished while Ruana notes his name. Ruana reflects on how her plan to rob the estate was completely ruined. The brown-haired maid prepares a meal tray, lamenting her failed plan to escape. Morning light hits the grand estate as Ruana complains about her new duties. A firm hand knocks twice against the ornate wood of a bedroom door. Ruana announces her arrival to serve the master his morning meal as ordered. Outside the master's bedroom, a quiet thought wonders about his location. Ruana tentatively peeks into the room and softly calls for her lord. The maid is confused as blood suddenly splatters across her face. A piercing scream echoes over a bloody plate of steak and sauce. Eden holds Ruana as she realizes he has returned from death again. A pale hand reaches out to touch the face of the maid. The silver-haired man looms over Ruana after pinning her to the floor. Eden offers a serene smile despite the blood staining his white shirt. Eden admits his own surprise regarding the situation while sitting near Ruana. Ruana wonders why her master seems so pleased about the chaotic events. A steady hand reaches down to retrieve a silver fork from the floor. Eden casually admits to dying over 50 times to test his power.
The maid handles the cutlery while processing the horrific frequency of deaths.
The mastermind reflects on the many times he has returned from death. Ruana is visibly disturbed by the sheer insanity of his repeated tests. Eden stands up, acknowledging the divine nature of his new magical power. The maid considers his logic as she stares at his bloodied uniform. Ruana reflects on the lonely life of a child born without magic. A flashback shows young Eden sitting alone, rejected by his own world. Ruana listens intently as the silver-haired man continues his dark explanation.
Eden expresses that a god has finally acknowledged his existence. Ruana is horrified when her master mentions a secret, ominous new plan.
The silver-haired man smiles while declaring his intent to end the world. Ruana is left emotionally drained by his dark and villainous declaration. Eden steps forward, commanding the maid to assist in his destructive goals. The mastermind pulls Ruana close, insisting they destroy the world together. Ruana complains about the immense pain of being dragged into global destruction. Eden maintains that destroying the world is aligned with the divine will. The maid frantically asks why she must be involved in such madness. Eden urges the woman to consider this a rare and valuable opportunity. Ruana asks if her master has completely misunderstood the god's true will. The maid argues that his survival was meant to be a second chance.
Ruana suggests that he was revived specifically to save other people.
Eden mocks the maid's naive optimism while she offers a weak defense. The silver-haired man looks at her with cold, unconvinced eyes. Eden points out that the hero Arthur would have received this power instead.
Ruana threatens to reveal his destructive plan to the story's protagonist, Arthur. The mastermind smirks, noting that she possesses absolutely no proof of anything.
Eden questions if Arthur would ever believe a maid over a marquis.
Ruana vows to find proof while questioning why he shared his secrets.
Eden smiles brilliantly, as if amused by her spirit and defiance. The maid is bewildered by the mastermind's unsettling and shifting moods. Eden retrieves a sealed envelope, claiming the current situation is actually beneficial. The silver-haired man announces his plan to take her to a gala. Ruana is baffled and asks why she is required for such a hunt. Eden reveals his intention to introduce the maid to the hero, Arthur. A chilling smile appears as Eden plans to provoke the hero. Ruana's soul seems to leave her body at the grim news. Eden shouts for Namilton as the maid stands paralyzed in the background. A creak sounds as the butler opens the door and answers his master. Namilton enters the room and acknowledges his master's summons. Eden commands the butler to take Ruana to a boutique immediately. The silvered-haired man specifies that she needs a custom-made dress while the blood-spattered maid looks on. Eden offers a sharp, knowing smile as he continues his command. Ruana stares forward with a determined expression, silently planning her next move within the week. A firm internal vow declares her intent to escape her current situation. The scene shifts to the opulent interior of a high-end dress boutique. The red-haired shopkeeper notes the long duration of the master's private conversation, while the brown-haired woman waits. Ruana politely asks the shopkeeper for permission to use the establishment's restroom. The shopkeeper provides directions to the back door as Ruana offers her thanks. Once alone, the maid looks around cautiously to ensure the coast is clear. A sudden gleam of hope and opportunity sparkles in Ruana's purple eyes. Believing she has found her chance, the brown-haired woman breaks into a desperate run. Ruana sprints through the town streets, frantically checking her funds and considering a carriage for her escape. The maid revels in the thought of finally achieving her freedom. Her moment of joy is cut short when a firm hand suddenly clamps onto her shoulder. Ruana's face pales with shock as she realizes her escape has been intercepted. Namilton appears behind her, calmly stating that the master is waiting and it is time to return. Stylized flashbacks show Ruana's repeated failed attempts to run away being thwarted by the butler. Every desperate attempt to flee is shown to have ended in immediate failure. Silhouettes reveal another moment where Namilton caught the maid during her escape. As she is measured for her new dress, Ruana wonders how the butler manages to find her every single time. The maid feels her time limit approaching and desperately tries to brainstorm a new plan. A pair of shoes is visible as someone approaches the changing area behind a curtain. Eden abruptly enters the private room, causing the shopkeeper to gasp in surprise. Ruana looks up at the silver-haired marquis with a startled expression. The maid chides her master for his lack of manners in barging in while she is changing clothes. Eden remains unmoved by her complaints while the shopkeeper stays in the background. The mastermind claims he only entered because he has an urgent matter to discuss. Without warning, the silver-haired man reaches out and grabs the maid's arm. Ruana is visibly shaken by his sudden physical approach. A small prick draws a tiny drop of blood from the woman's arm. Eden explains he used a holy needle meant to identify demons and watches for a reaction. The Marquis confirms that Ruana is not a demon since the needle failed to glow med. Ruana is deeply annoyed that her master actually suspected her of being a supernatural creature. Eden pulls the maid closer while mentioning that the king is firmly on his side. The shopkeeper looks on with wide-eyed amazement at the intense interaction between the two. In a chibi internal monologue, Ruana calls her master an idiot, only for him to overhear her. The panicked maid quickly tries to cover her tracks by claiming she called him a masterful lord. Eden points out that Namilton has aged significantly from the stress of chasing her for days. The silver-haired man looks at her with a chillingly possessive gaze, declaring that she belongs to him. Ruana is left speechless and visibly repulsed by his declaration. Eden offers a casual apology for the interruption as he prepares to step back. The Marquis turns his attention back to the business of selecting a dress for the maid. Side-by-side panels show Eden's smug satisfaction as he comments on how the dress will suit her hair.
Ruana stands frozen in disbelief while the shopkeeper observes the tense atmosphere.
The brown-haired woman grips her clothing tightly as her frustration boils over. Ruana seethes with anger, questioning the mastermind's intentions and his erratic behavior. A final internal declaration shows Ruana's resolve to not let the Marquis win. The scene concludes with the maid having her face prepared for the upcoming event.
Ruana wears an ornate silver necklace with her elegant white gala gown.
The charity party begins at a grand estate with a large stone.
A maid makes final adjustments to the white dress from behind. The onlookers are captivated by her appearance and remark how lovely she looks. The shopkeeper marvels at how beautiful the brown-haired woman looks in her dress. Ruana turns around slowly as her transformation for the gala is complete. Eden enters the room and notes he remembered to knock this time. The maid steps forward and her profile is shown in the gown.
Ruana responds tentatively to her master while surrounded by a floral background.
Eden asks the maid if anything looks strange while observing her closely. The Marquis commands they go to tease Arthur while leading away. Eden waits with arms crossed and a curious look on his face. Ruana questions if it is acceptable for him to share a carriage with a maid. Eden dismisses social norms based on his past, while Ruana voices her concern. The brown-haired woman wonders why she is being dragged to this party. Eden reminds her that he is taking her along specifically to provoke Arthur. Ruana remains silent while thinking that her master has a truly awful personality. Narration describes Arthur's rise from commoner to hero and Eden's hatred for him. Eden's resentment stems from Arthur's honesty and his magically gifted blessed life. Ruana wonders if the mastermind is acting like a child in this situation. The maid reflects on how the mastermind often dies in the story. The text notes that Eden survives until the end of the novel. Eden notices the maid staring, and she reacts with an annoyed sound.
Ruana quips that being annoying is the secret to her master's long life.
The silver-haired man commands his maid to call him by his name, Ian. Ruana is paralyzed by a sudden chill and shock at his request. Eden insists she call him Eden instead of my lord or idiot master. Ruana furiously contemplates shooting her master with a magic gun. Eden calls her honey while she sarcastically asks if he is in his right mind. The brown-haired woman concludes that her master is completely unhinged. The pair prepares to exit the carriage as they arrive at the venue. Eden instructs her to act as his business partner and pretend they are in love. The Marquis promises her a week off if she calls him Eden and plays her part. Ruana immediately suspects the vacation is unpaid and retaliates with chibi anger. The maid looks forward with a serious expression as a hand reaches out. Eden and Ruana walk together as they enter the ballroom hand in hand. The scene shifts to the interior of the opulent and crowded ballroom. The crowd murmurs in surprise at the arrival of Marquis Croden. Ruana takes a deep breath to steady herself as they walk together. Eden expresses unfilial satisfaction in bringing a former commoner to the party. The maid retorts that her existence was already deemed unfilial by him. The Marquise describes the public spectacle as a form of little payback.
Ruana's face flushes with anger as she considers shooting her master again.
The maid suspects her master is planning something and is more erratic than usual.
Ruana makes an annoyed sound while looking away from her master.
The brown-haired woman turns her head as she spots a specific person. Ruana recognizes the blonde hair of someone across the room. A close-up reveals the piercing blue eyes of the man she spotted. Arthur Cameron greets the Marquis and is identified as the story's hero. Eden and Arthur stand face-to-face as they acknowledge their reunion. Eden formally greets Arthur Cameron as they shake hands in the ballroom. Arthur shares his surprise at seeing the Marquis attend such a party. The hero calls his rival eccentric while preparing to ask a question. Ruana stands elegantly in her white gown amidst a bright floral background. Arthur gazes intently at the brown-haired woman, clearly struck by her appearance. The maid observes the hero and is impressed by his honest eyes. Eden pulls Ruana close and introduces her as his lover to Arthur. The Marquis smirks as he keeps a possessive hand on Ruana's shoulder. Ruana offers a polite greeting to the hero, acknowledging his great status. Arthur graciously accepts the greeting, claiming the honor is actually his own. The brown-haired woman is momentarily dazzled by Arthur's heroic and shining aura. Eden interrupts by claiming that he and Ruana are working together privately. Arthur expresses genuine interest in the nature of their secret collaborative work. With a sinister smile, Eden promises that the hero will know soon. The Marquis abruptly leads Ruana away while Arthur watches them leave silently. In a humorous moment, Ruana is dragged off while Arthur waves goodbye. Ruana informs her master that this exhausting performance requires 2 weeks' leave. Eden continues their public act by declaring his love for his honey. The maid complains loudly that the high heels are causing her pain. Eden observes his maid's honest and vocal complaints with a quiet expression.
Chibi Ruana looks incredibly grumpy and disgruntled by the social event.
The Marquis laughs heartily at his maid's blunt and unrefined reaction. Eden assumes she wants a private moment and suggests they go elsewhere. Ruana finally sits down and breathes a sigh of immense release. Eden mocks his maid for sitting down while her master is standing. Ruana retorts by reminding him of the embarrassing honey comments he made. The maid reflects on the exhausting nature of parties in real life. Ruana thinks about the overwhelming crowd and all their fancy, expensive clothes. She gazes out from the balcony with a peaceful and contemplative expression. The brown-haired woman admits to herself that the evening isn't all bad. Ruana glances back over her shoulder at the Marquis standing nearby. She acknowledges that while her master is questionable, the night is nice. Eden leans toward his maid and asks her to tell him something. The Marquis asks Ruana if she actually descended from the heavens. A close-up reveals Eden offering a rare, gentle, and warm smile. Ruana is caught completely off guard and stares at him with surprise. The woman firmly denies his suggestion, insisting she is just a maid. Eden tells her not to lie as he leans closer to her. Ruana turns away in annoyance as the Marquis chuckles behind her. Eden notes that no one ever dares to treat him with insolence.
The maid is offended when her master calls her facial expression insolent.
Eden laughs as he points out her grumpy face, much to her annoyance. The Marquis offers to get her a drink despite her persistent refusal. Ruana notices a group of noblewomen watching her through a window nearby. She puts on a polite smile, claiming she is being a proper maid. Eden smiles as he decides to leave the drink selection to her. Ruana promises to be right back as she prepares to fetch refreshments. As soon as he leaves, the maid curses her situation under her breath. A group of intimidating noblewomen surround the solitary Ruana with hostile glares. One of the women rudely asks Ruana if she is just a commoner. Ruana is cornered by inquisitive noblewomen demanding to know her background. Arthur steps in to rescue Ruana from the overwhelming group of women. The blonde man politely asks the ladies if he can borrow Ruana. Arthur claims he needs to discuss matters related to Lord Croydon's business. The noblewomen are visibly flustered and immediately grant the hero his request. Arthur leads Ruana away while the crowd watches them leave the ballroom. Arthur and the brown-haired woman walk together toward a secluded area. The hero stops and releases her hand as they reach the hallway. Ruana offers her sincere thanks to Arthur for his timely intervention. Arthur looks serious as he admits his motive wasn't entirely selfless. Arthur confesses that he also wants to know about her relationship status. A pixelated Ruana malfunctions internally as her composure completely breaks down. Arthur offers a sad smile while asking if she actually dislikes him. Ruana waves her hands frantically while denying any negative feelings toward him. The hero smiles warmly as he takes her hand into his once more. Ruana is left bewildered as an ominous, dark energy begins to manifest. A sudden panicked shout commands everyone to run from the approaching danger. Close-up shots show Arthur and Ruana reacting with shock to the warning. Ruana realizes she must return to her master's side immediately. The maid worries that Eden's magical power is far too weak for this. Narration describes the catastrophic outcome if Eden encounters a magic-based monster. Eden greets Ruana on the balcony and asks if she caused this. Ruana grips her master's arm and insists they escape the area right now. The silver-haired man remains indifferent, questioning the need for them to flee. Eden claims he'll return even if he dies watching his enemies perish. Ruana is paralyzed by horror at her master's reckless and dark declaration. The brown-haired woman asks her master what he is even talking about. Eden's face turns pale as he begins to suffer from the magical atmosphere. The Marquis's hands tremble uncontrollably as he experiences intense physical pain. Ruana is distracted by a system alert appearing in the air before her. A notification warns that failure to defeat the monster will cause world destruction. Eden casually remarks that the reward for success is a 3-month extension. Ruana is terrified by the realization that the world is currently ending. The maid insists they must run as she heads for the exit. Ruana gestures toward the door while telling her master to move faster. A sudden, sharp gasp escapes her as a loud growl echoes. A massive red eye looms in the shadows behind the unsuspecting maid. A menacing presence towers over Ruana as a low growl sounds out. A giant snarling wolf monster is revealed behind the horrified brown-haired woman. Ruana is stunned by the beast's gargantuan size as it looms over them.
Ruana commands her master to run while she tries to distract the creature.
Eden stares blankly and asks where they could possibly run to. The maid draws a concealed handgun and aims it at the monster. A loud bang rings out as Ruana fires directly into the beast's head.
Ruana warns that the monster's magic will kill her master if they stay.
Eden looks at her with narrow eyes, deeply suspicious of her secret abilities. The massive wolf roars in pain and anger after taking several hits.
Ruana flinches as a red, crackling surge of energy suddenly erupts.
Eden steps forward and shields the maid as a purple blast strikes. A massive crash echoes as the wolf is sent flying through the air.
The colossal monster lets out a blood-curdling, guttural roar of fury.
A dazed and sweating Ruana struggles to process the unfolding chaos. Arthur summons a barrage of glowing light spears to strike the beast. Intense golden magic erupts as the spears pierce through the dark creature. The blonde hero stands victorious over the monster's smoldering, arrow-riddled remains. Arthur finds them on the balcony, prompting Ruana to wish he arrived sooner. Arthur warns that the monster is only temporarily restrained and they must flee. Ruana desperately grips her master's arm while calling out to him urgently. A flustered Ruana insists she used his name while demanding they run immediately.
The silver-haired Marquis remains stoically silent despite the maid's frantic, panicked shouting.
Eden coldly questions the hero about what brought him to this location.
Arthur is visibly taken aback by the Marquise's blunt and suspicious inquiry.
Eden repeats his question, noting that there are far more people elsewhere. The blonde man hesitates as he searches for a proper diplomatic response.
The brown-haired woman watches the tense exchange with an observant, wary gaze.
Arthur explains he prioritized the Marquise's rescue because of Eden's magic sensitivity.
Eden dismisses the help as meddlesome, while Ruana judges his terrible social skills. Ruana scolds her master for being shy and demands he act normally.
The Marquise responds with a flat, unimpressed look of pure, utter confusion. Ruana delivers a sharp, intentional stomp onto her master's foot in retaliation.
The maid teases Eden for masking his happiness with such rude, defensive comments.
Arthur invites them to follow him as ominous dark energy begins swirling below. The group reacts with shock as more monsters emerge from the dark shadows. A giant wolf monster lunges forward with its claws bared and teeth gnashing. Ruana cries out in fear before drawing a concealed handgun from her dress. Arthur suggests jumping to the ground while Ruana protests they are too high. The maid flatly refuses to jump, her face contorted with absolute sheer terror. Arthur continues to hold back the approaching beasts with his shining holy magic. Eden informs the hero that they will be taking the leap regardless. Arthur tells them to go ahead and promises he will catch up soon. Ruana stands her ground and screams that she absolutely refuses to jump.
Eden effortlessly scoops his mate up, questioning if he ever needed her consent.
The Marquise hoists her over his shoulder while ignoring her loud, terrified protests. Eden leaps over the marble railing as Ruana lets out a high-pitched scream. They land safely as Eden internally complains about how noisy his mate is. The silver-haired man informs the trembling woman that they have reached the ground. A panicked Ruana scurries away while Eden watches her with a tired expression. The blonde hero lands gracefully on the courtyard floor to rejoin a pair. Arthur confirms he restrained the monster, but urges them to move even faster. Eden senses a new shift in the air as Arthur notes the situation. Another monster suddenly appears, causing Arthur to realize the trouble is far from over. Ruana feels the overwhelming magic pressure and worries about her master's physical state. The maid asks her master if he is going to be all right now. Eden offers a faint, strained smile while insisting that he feels absolutely fantastic. Ruana asks about his body, but Eden recklessly claims he doesn't mind dying. Eden notes he'll just return, while Ruana realizes he's pushed beyond his limit. Dark smoke curls around a cracked pillar as the situation grows increasingly dire. Arthur observes the destruction and realizes the other guests might already be lost. The silver-haired man breathes heavily as the magical strain takes a visible toll. A dark premonition questions if the world is truly heading toward total destruction. A system notification warns that the world ends if the monster remains undefeated. Ruana questions the narrative weight of a mere 3-month survival reward. A winged, lion-like monster lunges while Arthur prepares his glowing magic. Arthur commands everyone to keep their distance as the beast attracts. Ruana asks Arthur how much longer he can withstand the monster's pressure. Arthur explains they must destroy the core before his magic fails him. Ruana stares in shock while repeating the impossible 10-minute time limit. The maid realizes that completing the task in time is absolutely impossible.
Ruana decides to choose her own ending as she readies her handgun.
Resolved to face the end, Ruana grips her revolver with intense determination.
In a flurry of action, Ruana blasts the beast with several bullets. Ruana asks the stunned Arthur if he is surprised by her skill. Ruana admits her recklessness, but insists it no longer matters if they die. The monster roars in agony as Ruana's bullets find their mark. Arthur shouts for Ruana to aim directly for the creature's core. A brilliant light erupts as Arthur prepares a final, powerful magical strike. Arthur's glowing magic slices through the beast with a sharp, clean sound. The massive monster crashes to the floor as its life force vanishes. Arthur confirms the kill while Ruana identifies the location of the core.
Ruana lets out a long sigh of relief, thanking the heavens.
Despite their victory, Ruana's hand trembles uncontrollably around her weapon. Eden approaches and criticizes Ruana for always charging into danger first. The Marquis's face twitches as an ominous dark smoke begins to manifest. Eden suddenly shoves Ruana aside as a shadowy monster lunges forward. Blood sprays through the air as Eden takes a devastating, lethal hit. Arthur shouts Eden's name while binding the shadowy beast with magical chains. Ruana clutches her head in pain as a blood-curdling, high-pitched shriek echoes.
Ruana panics as she finds Eden lying in a growing pool of blood.
Eden lies dazed and bleeding from his mouth as his strength fades. Ruana wonders why he saved her when he is so weak to magic. She realizes he relies on his immortality to perform such reckless stunts.
Ruana calls out to her master as he slowly opens his eyes.
The Marquis coughs up blood as Ruana frantically asks if he is all right. Eden calmly explains that a broken rib has just pierced his lung. Ruana realizes the wound is fatal and becomes paralyzed with sheer terror. She considers asking Arthur to heal her master with his holy magic. Ruana remembers with despair that magic has no healing effect on Eden. Suddenly, Eden's hand reaches out and firmly grips his mate's arm. The dying Marquis looks Ruana in the eye and commands her to kill him. Eden notes he will simply return to life if she delivers the blow. The silver-haired man tells his maid not to show any more hesitation. Eden questions why she is hesitating now after everything they have tested. Arthur rushes toward the pair while calling out to Lord Crowden.
Arthur asks if they are safe, and Eden replies he's about to be.
Ruana and her master share a tense, silent look of grim understanding. The dark-haired woman reaches out and retrieves her gun from the ground. Ruana aims at Eden, noting that anyone would hesitate to commit murder.
A menacing metallic click sounds as Ruana cocks the hammer of her revolver.
Eden asks Ruana what she thinks he actually represents to her. Arthur is horrified as Ruana claims she is ending Eden's misery. Arthur insists that the Marquise's life can still be saved. Ruana clarifies that his interpretation is not what she meant. The maid laments that her words make her sound psychopathic. Eden notes he cannot afford to worry about some things. Ruana stands with her gun as magical blue energy swirls. Arthur stares in total disbelief and asks how she could. Arthur is horrified and questions her ease in killing someone. The maid notices that Lord Cameron is completely and utterly traumatized. Ruana asks Lord Cameron to turn his attention elsewhere immediately.
Arthur refuses while mentioning he believed Ruana was deeply in love.
The blonde hero grips his ornamental brooch while looking down. A realization about a romance with Lord Croydon causes confusion.
Arthur asks why Ruana would act so cruelly toward them.
Arthur sighs in exasperation as the group continues their exchange. Eden realizes Arthur thought he was the one more in love. Arthur looks away nervously as he senses a sudden shift. A bloodied Eden sits up and finds Arthur's misunderstanding amusing. Eden offers a chilling grin while Arthur lets out a scream. A horse-drawn carriage travels through the woods at a ghat. Ruana collapses in exhaustion while Eden warns her about her posture. Ruana reflects on the reports of over 20 noble casualties. The maid considers the untallied deaths of the commoners as well. Arthur rates the devastating monster incident as only level 5. Ruana is stunned that the terrifying event has such a low rating. The memory of the massive wolf monster continues to haunt her. Arthur gives a gentle nod and a soft smile of relief. Eden addresses Lord Cameron as they stand together after the battle. The silver-haired man asks the hero to keep today's secrets. Eden smirks while calling the secret a payment for their witness. Arthur watches in silence as the Marquis delivers his final words. Arthur admits he is simply glad both are safe for now.
Ruana wonders if Eden is truly satisfied with this particular outcome.
She reflects on how the men's relationship ended up becoming closer. Eden questions the king's true motives as smoke curls around. The Marquis wonders why he, of all people, received this ability.
Ruana suggests he was meant to save the world with it.
Eden counters that if so, he should have been given magic instead. Eden recalls his neglectful father and questions this posthumous divine help. Ruana reacts with a quiet gasp of surprise to his revelation. The maid watches Eden and thinks that he looks quite lonely. Ruana suggests he might have always had the ability unnoticed. The maid immediately worries she was totally out of line. Ruana looks confused as the sound of light laughter echoes. Eden laughs at the ridiculous suggestion while Ruana watches him. Eden promises Ruana a vacation, and she reacts with pure joy. Eden stretches and announces that he will take a vacation too. A small, satisfied smile appears on the silver-haired man's face. The Marquis looks at his maid with an unusually gentle expression. A bubble declares that they will have lots of fun together. Ruana facepalms as she realizes her vacation will be no rest. Moonlight filters through an open window onto a quiet balcony. Ruana sleeps soundly, unaware of a presence near her bed. Namilton stands silently over the sleeping maid in the dim room. A vein of irritation pulses on the older man's forehead. Namilton observes that the master has changed since Ruana's arrival. Eden commands the butler to buy Ruana a luxurious boutique dress. Ruana stands outside the master's bedroom with a puzzled expression. A soft whoosh sounds as Ruana slips through the doorway. Namilton notes that Eden spends late nights alone with Ruana. Namilton is shocked to see the pair together outside at night. Ruana stumbles, her blue heels nearly slipping on the ground. Eden catches her, advising the maid to watch her step carefully. Namilton reels in shock at the sight of their physical contact. A series of soft taps wakes the sleeping maid. Ruana rubs her eyes, surprised to see the butler so late. Namilton tells her to drink a tonic and read a book immediately. He instructs her to share the prenatal book with the master. Namilton bids her goodnight and shuts the door with a click. Ruana pulls up her covers, questioning the butler's strange behavior. The maid gasps, wondering if Eden is secretly expecting a child. A pale hand reaches out to grasp a dainty floral teacup. Ruana stares intensely at Eden while pouring his morning tea. The maid's suspicious gaze remains fixed on her unsuspecting master. Eden notes that she has been staring at him for some time. The master tells her to speak up if something is wrong. Ruana excitedly asks if he is planning on getting married soon. Eden stares back blankly, asking what she is talking about. She presents the prenatal education book Namilton gave to her. The two sit in the lounge, surrounded by opulence and silence. Eden suggests the book is for her to learn common sense. A stunned Ruana questions how prenatal education relates to society. Eden firmly declares that he has no intention of marrying anyone. Ruana suspects a secret mother told Namilton about a child. The maid fumes, internally labeling her master a complete scumbag. A sharp clack sounds as the plate meets the table. Ruana angrily questions why her vacation hasn't started as promised. Eden stretches nonchalantly while claiming he is the one relaxing. Ruana shouts that only he is enjoying any time off today. The silver-haired man hums thoughtfully as he holds his book. Eden asks Ruana what she would actually like to do. Ruana envisions a solitary, peaceful walk along a bright beach. Eden gazes forward with a neutral, slightly bored expression. A quiet tap echoes as Eden acknowledges her request. The master stands and walks away, leaving Ruana very confused. Staff loads several large trunks onto a lavish white carriage. Ruana appears in a green dress holding a single suitcase. Namilton promises to look after the estate during their absence. Eden comments on how surprisingly little luggage the maid brought. A confused Ruana asks where they are actually heading today. Eden smiles, confirming they are going to the beach and castle. Ruana asks with annoyance why the butler must join them. Namilton looms silently behind the frustrated maid in the hallway. Namilton presents a tonic and book, ordering her to consume both. Ruana stares in silent confusion while clutching the provided yellow book. A sharp gust sounds as Namilton forces the liquid down. Ruana sputters at the bitter taste, questioning the concoction's true nature. Ruana hides behind a book titled Everything About Childcare while questioning his marriage plans. Namilton casually advises the maid to maintain her physical health. A baffled Ruana wonders why her health is suddenly his concern. From off-screen, Eden asks why she is still lingering there. Eden sits inside the carriage and commands the maid to enter. Ruana quickly agrees and runs toward her master's waiting carriage. Ruana stands before the luxurious carriage, wondering what is actually happening. The horse-drawn carriage departs at a rapid pace down the mode. Inside the carriage, Ruana lets out a long, weary pew sound. Ruana laments her master's strange attachment and her lack of rest. The carriage jolts suddenly, throwing the maid toward her seat in Nestor. Ruana's hand lands squarely on Eden's leg during the chaotic tumble. The maid ends up on Eden's lap as the newspaper falls. Eden stares silently at the maid while she remains frozen nearby. An eek escapes Ruana as Eden firmly orders her to release him. Ruana collapses onto the carriage seat in a state of mortification. The flustered maid clutches her chest, wondering about her own reaction. The coachman's hands tremble violently as he grips the leather reins. The driver looks back in terror, his face pale with anxiety. Ruana shouts in total shock while leaning out the carriage door. Eden remains stoic, while Ruana reacts with bewilderment to an arrival. Arthur smiles awkwardly while greeting Lord Croydon from the roadside. Eden's expression tightens with a small, visible twitch of deep annoyance. Arthur sits on the ground while Eden identifies him by name. Ruana tells Arthur to be careful as he enters the carriage. Eden apologizes for the trouble, while Arthur suggests they travel together. Ruana asks Arthur why he was out in the area alone. Arthur explains he was patrolling because of the recent monster outbreak. Ruana considers Lord Arthur to be a remarkably honest and kind person. Eden narrows his eyes in a sharp, suspicious glance at Arthur. Arthur asks the pair where they were planning to travel today. Eden claims they were seeking a private vacation for just themselves.
Eden notes it is strange Arthur was hit by a slow carriage. Eden suggests the hit was intentional, while Ruana begs them to stop.
Arthur looks away nervously, sweating at the master's direct accusation. A close-up reveals Arthur's wide blue eye as the tension rises.
Ruana watches her master's silhouette with a startled and wary expression.
Eden announces their arrival at a grand castle overlooking the sea. Ruana is delighted to find a quiet beach and an old castle. Eden identifies the destination as one of the Croydon family villas.
The white-haired man asks his maid if she is finally satisfied.
Eden's gaze softens as he looks toward the seaside destination. An audible ugh escapes Ruana as she tries to hide her joy. Ruana reluctantly admits that the view of the beach is truly amazing.
A vein of irritation pulses on the silver-haired man's forehead.
Eden walks away down the hallway as Ruana supports the blonde hero. A sudden woe escapes the maid upon seeing the glowing castle decor.
Arthur and Ruana admire the interior while Eden's chibi interrupts them. Ruana stops in her tracks with a sudden realization about their location.
The maid insists they must treat Lord Cameron's leg injury immediately. Ruana asks where the castle servants are while following her master. Eden turns back, questioning if her presence alone is not enough. Ruana asks for help while Eden explains he dismissed the servants. Eden looks down as Ruana points out she is not truly alone. The maid's expression shifts as she realizes the intent behind his actions. Eden smiles amidst roses, confirming he wanted her alone with him.
Arthur asks nervously if the master's comment was a direct jab.
Ruana realizes she is caught between the two men's petty rivalry.
The maid stresses over having to manage both difficult men alone.
A frustrated Ruana shouts that she simply wants to go home. A chibi man wishes them a lovely vacation as the carriage arrives.
Solitary footprints mark a quiet path across the vast sandy beach.
The trio reaches the shore, with Ruana letting out a weary sigh.
Arthur thanks Ruana for her care while walking along the sand. A heavy silence falls as the group stands before the vast ocean. Eden questions her dissatisfaction despite providing the beach and a castle. The master notes he fulfilled her requests and questions her gloomy face. Ruana is taken aback, wondering if her true feelings were so obvious. The maid thinks she cannot admit wanting a vacation without him. Ruana sits alone on the sand, watching the gentle waves crash. She reflects on the beauty of the view despite her inner turmoil. Walking along the shore, she wonders if Eden was being considerate. The group sits together on the beach in a state of unease. Eden recalls her constant talk of wanting a peaceful vacation recently. The silver-haired man notices her staring and asks what is wrong. Ruana lowers her head and quietly offers her thanks to her lord. Eden asks her to repeat herself while she speaks a bit louder. The master smirks, teasingly claiming he cannot hear her soft voice. A low rumble sounds as dark clouds gather over the sea. A sudden flash of lightning startles the maid as a storm breaks. A heavy downpour begins as the trio gazes at the sky. Ruana asks if he summoned rain, but Eden vehemently denies it. A torrential downpour drenches the grand red-roofed castle by the sea. Eden and Ruana walk through the castle halls to escape the rain. A shirtless Eden dries himself, remarking that the situation is wonderful. He continues drying off, labeling the experience as a perfect vacation. Eden asks if the others are okay, while mocking the hero's speed. The silver-haired man's gaze narrows as he addresses the flustered maid. Water droplets fall from his skin with a soft, steady patter. Ruana stares with a deep blush at her master's exposed physique. The maid shouts for him to stop being sarcastic to others. Eden turns away abruptly, leaving a confused Ruana questioning his behavior. A soft thump sounds as Eden hides his visible embarrassment. A shivering Ruana complains about the cold and searches for firewood. The shirtless, silver-haired man tells his companion he will handle the situation, instructing her to change. A quick tapping sounds as Ruana skips down the stairs, finding her master's behavior quite unusual. Eden requests Lord Cameron to approach him while the blonde-haired man looks on with visible nervousness. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as a hand reaches out to steady itself against the stone railing. Ruana turns back on the grand staircase, calling out to her lord with an expression of deep hesitation. Standing in the hallway, the silver-haired master asks the maid if she happens to have any spare clothes. A heavy silence falls as Eden stares forward, his gray eyes narrowed in a cold and contemplative gaze. A soft rustling sounds as a pair of hands firmly grip the handle of a dark briefcase. Eden rubs his forehead in annoyance, while Chibi Ruana gleefully admits she didn't expect to stay the night. Rain pours down heavily over the grand moonlit villa, casting the sprawling estate in a somber blue light. Inside the mansion, a young staff member informs Hamilton that it has started raining while the butler drinks tea. The tuxedo-clad man expresses his concern over whether it was truly wise for the Marquis to travel unaccompanied. A soft sigh escapes Hamilton as he takes a quiet, thoughtful sip from his floral-patterned teacup.
Reflected in the window, the elderly butler predicts that the master and Ruwana will soon face much greater trials.
A sharp clatter sounds as Namilton dismisses his words as mere self-muttering when his subordinate asks for clarification. Billowing clouds of thick white steam fill a dimly lit room decorated with shelves and lush potted plants. Relaxing in a large, steaming bathtub, Ruwana reflects on how the evening feels weirdly and unexpectedly peaceful. The maid closes her eyes while soaking, thinking that the events of the day feel almost like a dream. A terrifying vision of a snarling, golden-eyed monster briefly flashes through her mind, shattering the momentary calm.
Ruwana ponders the true meaning of the system notification regarding a 3-month reward for clearing a quest. A splash sounds as the maid leans over the edge, concluding that another disaster will strike in 3 months. A pale hand grips the side of the tub as she prepares to finish her bath and dry off. Bare feet step onto the cold, wet floor, leaving watery prints as she exits the steaming bathtub. Drying her hair with a towel, Ruwana stares forward in silence as a look of grim realization takes hold. Carrying a lantern, Ruwana walks through the dark hallway, hoping that Arthur's injured leg is beginning to heal. A sudden, heavy clang echoes through the corridor, causing the startled maid to stop and look around. Ruwana spots a figure in the darkness and calls out to her lord, seeking a sense of security. She explains that she finished her bath first and promises to return his clean clothes after washing them. Standing alone in the green-tinted hall with her lantern, the girl is met with a chilling, total silence. Terror sets in as she realizes the person ahead isn't Eden, wondering if it could be Arthur or an intruder. A low, ominous rumble sounds as a dark shadow looms over the terrified maid in the darkened hallway. Ruwana's eyes widen in absolute horror as the light from her lantern reveals a terrifying presence. She stares at a painting where a distorted, pale female figure with a wide, gruesome smile watches her. A loud crash sounds as the lantern hits the floor and shatters, spilling oil and light everywhere. In his private chambers, Eden sits quietly on the edge of the bed while focused on reading a book. A cold sweat breaks out on Ruwana's face as the memory of the terrifying encounter remains vivid. Eden presses a hand to his temple, questioning his own thoughts as the silence of the night is broken. A loud bang sounds as the door bursts open, accompanied by a frantic, high-pitched scream of pure terror. Ruwana rushes into the room, tears streaming down her face as she desperately cries out for her master. Clinging to him, the terrified girl rambles about seeing a frightening figure on the stairs and in a painting. Chibi Ruwana wails and hugs her master tightly, insisting that there is something fundamentally wrong with the villa. The maid continues to shake him, convinced that a ghost is haunting the estate despite Eden's skeptical expression. Eden's face flushes as the maid begs him to believe her close proximity catching him off guard. A heavy silence falls as the master's gaze drifts to the lace-trimmed nightgown his panicked maid is wearing. A soft rustle sounds as he reaches out, his hand settling firmly on the trembling girl's shoulder. Eden suddenly pins her down among white flowers, leaving the confused maid staring up at him with wide eyes.
Ruwana looks up at the silver-haired man, calling out to him as the atmosphere between them shifts.
A soft slide sounds as his hand moves along her arm, his focus entirely on the girl beneath him.
A lingering pause stretches out as the master stares down at his maid with a serious and intense gaze. Chibi Ruwana fumes with indignation, yelling at her master to say something instead of just standing there in silence.
Eden dismisses her fears as he walks away, suggesting she merely imagined ghosts or saw Arthur.
Ruwana argues that if monsters exist in their world, then ghosts are perfectly plausible too. A soft patter of feet follows as Chibi Ruwana chases her master, begging not to be left alone.
Eden stops abruptly and looks back at the fearful maid with a pointed, silent glance. The master tells her to get under the covers for now while she looks on in confusion. Arthur appears holding a black cat, wondering if the stray was the source of the noise. Arthur places a comforting hand on her shoulder, asking if the cat was what startled her. Eden sighs at the fuss, noting the cat likely just came inside to escape the rain. Ruwana insists that even if the shadow was the cat, she saw something else during the lightning. She points a trembling finger at the wall, claiming a person in a painting was glaring at her. Arthur looks at the wall and notes there is only an empty frame hanging there. Ruwana's face pales in shock as she realizes the painting she saw has completely vanished. The scene focuses on the master's white shirt as the terrified maid lingers very close by. A cold sweat drips down the nervous maid's face as she addresses her master quietly. Ruwana clings to Eden's clothes and asks if she can sleep with him tonight. Sitting on the plush bed, Ruwana pats the pillow while preparing to settle in for the night. A chibi Ruwana chirps that she will be in his care for the night. Eden suggests she could have slept in Arthur's room since she seemed so worried about him. Ruwana reacts with pure disgust, stating she would never sleep in a stranger's room. Eden smirks, noting that her logic implies he is no longer a stranger to her. Pulling the duvet up, she reminds him she is merely his maid while he questions her behavior. Eden smiles to himself, pondering the fact that she addressed him so formally as her lord. Eden sits on the edge of the bed and remarks that most people prefer powerful mages like Arthur. A vision of Arthur smiling warmly appears as Eden continues to compare himself to the hero. Lying back, Ruana admits she couldn't care less about things like status or magic. Eden falls into a pensive silence while watching the maid prepare to sleep.
She muses that humans are creatures meant to struggle and worry about their lives.
Ruana explains that she prefers people who feel truly human in that vulnerable way. Her eyelids grow heavy as the day's tension finally drains away, leaving her sleepy. The master sits silently by her side as the light fades in the room. Eden leans down toward the sleeping girl, his silhouette cast against the soft light. He gently tucks a lock of hair behind her ear, thinking she is a truly strange girl. Eden sits alone in a grand chair, appearing deep in thought after Ruana falls asleep. The silver-haired man stares off into the distance with a neutral, calm expression.
Ruana remains fast asleep, her face peaceful as she rests in the master's room.
Arthur enters the room and begins to speak to Lord Cruffen. Eden immediately hushes the blonde hero, signaling him to keep his voice down. Arthur realizes he is interrupting their holiday and offers to take his leave. Eden stops him, declaring it is time for Lord Cameron to tell him the truth. The two men lock eyes in a tense moment of silent, heavy confrontation. Arthur admits he was caught and asks what Eden's relationship with Ruana truly is. Eden turns the question back on him, asking Arthur how their relationship looked to him. The silver-haired man adjusts his cravat as the tension between the rivals peaks. Arthur leaves the room but warns there is still plenty of room for him to intervene. A loud thud sounds as the door slams shut, leaving Eden standing alone. Eden finds Arthur's persistence infuriating as the scene transitions to the episode end. A lavish white carriage waits outside the grand estate as a new journey begins. Ruana notes that Arthur vanished as she asks where they are traveling today. Eden keeps his eyes closed while calmly announcing their destination is the temple. A worried Ruana questions if it's safe for him given the intense magic there. Inside the carriage, Ruana notes her master's preparation as the journey begins. Eden reveals a metal band around his ankle, stating its presence. A cold sweat drips down Ruana's face as she recognizes the item. The maid identifies the device as something typically reserved for dangerous criminals. Eden explains that the device is normally used to seal a criminal's magic. He modified it to block external magic, while Ruana acknowledges the explanation. Eden settles in for a nap, instructing his maid not to wake them. Ruana asks her lord if he failed to get any sleep last night. Concerned, the maid notes that the silver-haired master does not look well. Eden releases a weary sigh, asking whose fault she thinks his exhaustion is. A grand white-pillared temple with emerald spires stands under a clear sky. The master leads the way into the silent, vast halls of the couple. Ruana observes that the interior architecture resembles churches from her old world. The pair walks through the grand corridor toward their specific destination. Eden announces their arrival at the entrance to the temple's prayer room. Ruana asks about the lack of clergy, and her lord confirms their absence. The master bluntly states that the priest of this temple hates him. A confused Ruana asks for the reason behind such a strong resentment. Regret fills the maid's mind as she realizes she shouldn't have asked. Eden reflects on being called an unblessed child who shouldn't have been born. Sitting in a grand chair, Eden remains silent while Ruana regrets her curiosity. Eden notes it as time, leaving a puzzled Ruana questioning what he means. The master casually commands his maid to summon the presence of Cod. A shocked Chibi Ruana clarifies that he just asked her to call King. Ruana argues the impossibility of the task while Eden questions her refusal. The maid trembles in silent frustration at her master's absurd and demanding request. Ruana shouts in exasperation, asking how she is possibly supposed to call King. Eden reminds her that she should know the method better than anyone. He reiterates that she is, after all, the king's chosen messenger. Ruana sighs, wishing for answers about her arrival in this strange world. The maid decides to simply put on a show of pretending to summon King. Joining her hands, Ruana awkwardly attempts to call out to the deity. She peeks through one eye to gauge her master's reaction to her performance. Eden watches her skeptically, forcing a nervous exclamation of realization from the maid. Ruana continues her prayer, pleading for King to answer her if he is listening. A heavy silence fills the prayer room as both wait for a sign. A subtle smile plays on Ruana's lips as she plots her next move. Ruana cheerfully claims that it seems the deity is currently away. Eden mocks her, questioning if she was a fallen angel kicked out of heaven. A flabbergasted expression takes over Ruana's face as she questions his seriousness. The maid nervously starts a hypothetical scenario to test her master's true feelings. She asks what he would have done if she weren't the messenger. Eden states she would have faced the death penalty for her murder attempt. A startled Ruana shouts for her lord as he questions her sudden outburst. Desperate, the maid raises her hands while a bright glow surrounds her.
Ruana frantically claims that she can suddenly feel the voice of King descending.
Chibi Ruana panics, knowing she must maintain her angelic facade to survive. She feigns receiving a divine oracle, trembling as she calls upon King's name.
A devious smirk crosses Eden's face as he asks her to repeat himself.
Ruana boldly announces that King commanded the Lord to cherish Ruana Polly.
The silver-haired man looks down with a skeptical gaze, questioning the deity's supposed command.
Chibi Ruana looks nervous as her master asks if there were any further revelations.
Ruana awkwardly attempts to fabricate more divine messages while holding her hand out.
A sharp clatter sounds as Eden turns away, leaving the startled maid behind. The master places a hand on the flustered maid's head, appearing deep in butt. Ruana insists she isn't foolish, but her lord bluntly disagrees with her self-assessment.
Eden dismisses her efforts as useless and tells her it is time to depart.
Ruana watches him leave, wondering if her master also had personal questions for the deity.
An elderly butler welcomes the silver-haired lord back to his grand estate with a bow.
A steady, rhythmic sound follows the lord up the stairs as Ruana watches him go. Eden pauses on the stairs to firmly command his maid to stop following him. Standing alone in the grand hall, Ruana watches her master's departure with great confusion.
Watching the maid, the elderly butler wonders if the pair is having a lover's quarrel.
The butler helps his master remove his coat, asking if something unpleasant occurred today.
Eden turns with a sharp movement, asking if his sour mood is that obvious.
The elderly man continues assisting his lord while admitting he might be overthinking things. Eden stares at the magic ceiling band, noting that wearing it makes him feel physically ill. A heavy silence falls over the room as the butler watches his master in concern.
The lord stands silently while adjusting his clothing, lost in his own private reflections.
Eden suddenly addresses the butler by name, his expression shifting to a more serious tone. The silver-haired man demands to know why the butler gave Ruana a specific book.
The butler touches his face with a sheepish smile as he recalls the book in question.
A chill runs down Chibi Eden's spine as he questions the butler's unsettling, cheerful expression. Hamilton explains that he felt it was finally time for Ruana to gain that knowledge. Eden reacts with pure shock, questioning why the maid would ever need prenatal education. A lingering thought hangs in the air as the butler prepares to reveal his reasoning.
The butler raises a single finger, casting an ominous shadow as he prepares to speak. Ruana lies startled in a luxurious bed, her face framed by soft white floral patterns.
A sudden, frantic shout of her name causes the maid's eyes to widen in shock. A loud bang echoes as Eden bursts into the room, shouting the maid's name frantically.
Ruana cowers behind a pillow, begging for forgiveness while her lord questions her sudden panic.
Eden stares at the maid in silence, a drop of nervous sweat on his face. Sparkles fill the air as Ruana looks around, questioning why she was moved to this room. A soft gulp sounds as Ruana asks if the butler ordered her relocation. A firm grip settles on her shoulders as Eden addresses the maid with intense seriousness. The silver-haired man leans in close, his gaze fixed intensely on the trembling girl. Eden finally voices his shocking question, asking the maid if she is actually pregnant. The scene shifts momentarily as announcements and recruitment messages for the staff appear. A wave of indignation washes over Ruana as she repeats his absurd question in disbelief. A loud thud sounds as Ruana hits him with a pillow, questioning whose child he expects. Walking away, the maid thinks her lord should have just been honest about his feelings. Sparkles and hearts surround Hamilton as he recalls suggesting that Ruana is carrying the lord's child. A sharp crack sounds as the butler's romantic delusion is shattered by the harsh reality. Both Eden and Ruana collapse in disgust, retching as the confused butler watches them. The master and maid glare with shared intensity, both calling out the butler's name. Question marks surround the butler as the pair decides his mind must be failing him. Chibi Hamilton bows deeply in apology, reflecting on how his actions caused such a misunderstanding. Ruana sticks her tongue out at Eden as he ponders their relationship's public perception.
Musical notes float as the pair walks away, dismissing the recent chaos as nothing.
Ruana stops and looks back as her lord calls out to her one more time. Returning from the temple, Eden reflects on the strange system words that appeared before him. A system notification displays a monster outbreak quest, while Ruana ponders the implications of the reward. Eden considers the existence of a power capable of controlling when and how many monsters appear. As he rises from the sofa, the silver-haired master realizes someone possesses the power of resurrection. Eden leans close to his maid, contemplating beings whose abilities far exceed any human comprehension. He identifies this mysterious, high-ranking being simply as the one true god of this world. A heavy silence falls as both the master and maid stare forward in complete shock. A soft rustling sounds as two small, furry paws step through a field of magical flowers. A black cat suddenly appears, smugly noting that it took them a long time to understand.
Ruana stares with wide eyes, questioning if she has somehow remained trapped in a dream. A sharp ouch escapes Chibi Eden's mouth as Chibi Ruana pinches his cheek to test reality. Eden touches his face in disbelief, struggling to process the presence of a talking feline. They both realize that this is the same mysterious cat that followed them from the villa. The black cat reveals its name as Lapis Lazuli as it stands before them. Eden lifts the cat by its scruff, but it indignantly demands respect as a divine messenger. The master mocks the deity's choice, labeling the messengers as a pathetic and laughable joke.
Chibi Ruana fumes in the background as the cat makes another rude observation about her.
Lapis Lazuli grows angry, admitting Ruana's soul is unremarkable, but warning Eden not to underestimate her body.
The cat leaps away, taunting Eden for being wide open while the master questions its cryptic meaning.
Confusion surrounds the master as he asks for clarification about the maid's true nature being replaced. Ruana asks her lord to wait while he places a contemplative hand on her head. The cat explains that her human soul slipped into a body personally crafted by Lady Verona. Ruana crouches down, demanding the cat explain exactly what it meant regarding her physical vessel.
The feline reveals that a different soul was originally intended to inhabit the body of Ruana Polly.
A vision appears of the original soul disappearing into another world, leaving the vessel empty. Ruana remains silent and stunned as the full truth of her arrival begins to sink in. The cat confirms that the original soul escaped into another dimension, leaving the position vacant. A hand grips the fabric of a dress tightly as the tension in the room rises. Eden stands behind his maid, his expression unreadable as the cat continues its startling revelation.
Lapis Lazuli explains that Ruana's soul was hastily selected simply to fill the empty physical vessel.
Both master and maid stare at the talking cat in a long, uncomfortable moment of silence.
Ruana realizes with a shock that she is essentially just a stand-in, which the cat bluntly confirms. Indignant, Ruana shouts at the lousy furball, demanding that the cat return her original life. The cat licks its paw dismissively, asking if she bothered to read the world's guidebook. Ruana stares blankly, her mind racing as she tries to recall any relevant information. She suddenly remembers the novel titled Tales of the Bandana Continent and questions if that's the one. Lapis Lazuli confirms that the book she read was actually a comprehensive guide to this world.
Ruana argues that enjoying a good book never meant she consented to being dragged into its world.
Eden stands in the background, suspiciously repeating the word book as he watches their interaction.
The cat jumps up, ending the argument by reminding them that the 3-month grace period is expiring. Realizing the danger, Eden asks when the next wave of monsters is scheduled to appear. The black cat raises its paws cheerfully, signaling the start of a new, dangerous countdown. Chibi Eden and Ruana look at each other nervously after learning the deadline is 10 days away. Stylized cat-shaped numbers 9 and 8 appear as the countdown to the outbreak begins. The black cat gleefully announces the final second of the countdown as it reaches 0. A heavy thud sounds as Eden pulls Ruana close, protectively calling out her name in the darkness.
Ruana shouts one last insult at the lousy cat as the scene fades into a dark void.